told me that your mother taught you guys, so you have a twin sister and you also have a younger brother, and that she always taught you guys to be, active, to stand up for your beliefs, to be heard. She wasn't an animal activist, but you've told me that you feel like that's where that, kind of was marinated, in you guys and instilled in the three of you. But your sister and your brother you guys are all animal activists. How did this animal activism take shape in your home, since it wasn't, your willingness to fight and stand up for those that are lesser than, for sure. It sounds like, your mom doesn't take credit for it, but you say that you guys give her the credit. But the animal activism is a pretty good, pretty solid left turn from what she was standing up for.
Yeah, she voted every election and she donated blood regularly, and which I thought was amazing because you got cookies afterwards. And I think that's why I have such a positive view of donating. I donate. Yeah, I just donated yesterday. And no, I don't eat the cookies there.
They're not vegan.
I don't think so. I just walk out.
Maybe Oreos. You could take Oreos from
But that gave me a very positive association with things like giving blood. She always volunteered, and we recycled. And we recycled not because of the environment, but because she grew up in England during World War II. And so you just saved things. You just didn't waste. But when you grow up in rural Connecticut, you look at it as an environmental thing, not about having to save because there's a scarcity, but more because to save the planet. So it was really an environmental ethic first that grew in my sister, my brother, and I. And then I became a vegetarian when I was 14. And after reading a book called Diet for a Small Planet. And I became a vegetarian for environmental reasons. And then my brother became vegan a couple years later, and he was been vegan since he was 16. So I guess I was about, he became vegan about 3 or 4 years later. And I didn't become vegan, as you know, until 33 years later. But, and so then I just had, when I was modeling, I remember being on this island doing a 2-week job for English Cosmopolitan, I think, or something. And all they had was this shampoo that was tested on animals. I think it was called Flex. And so I wouldn't use it, and I just washed my hair with the hotel soap. So that was the beginning of me not using products tested on animals.
How did you know? Because the Diet for a Healthy Planet, or that book, was about diet, food. So what?
It was about the environment.
Who showed you what goes on behind closed doors in testing? What did you just start traversing that whole scene and reading? Or
I came across Peter Singer's Animal Liberation when I was a sophomore in high school, and I wrote a paper on it. And that's how I moved over to more ethical reasons. And that's when I stopped. Well, I never wore makeup then. I was from New England. I went to a preppy boarding school. Right. Nobody wore makeup. But when I started modeling, then I wouldn't model furs. And then there was a full-page ad in the New York Times about bunnies and testing makeup on bunnies and putting it in, holding their eyes open and putting in mascara and stuff. So that's when I started being aware of makeup and lotions and things. And Revlon was bad, and so Flex was, I think, maybe an L'Oreal product. Anyway, so I knew some of the companies. It was harder to get information then because it was 1980 and you didn't have the internet. And then when I moved to LA, Krista Rose from Last Chance for Animals was, was very close to him for a while. And that's when I got rid of all the clothing. So I was in my late 20s that had to, wool, leather, and silk. And then in my acting contracts when I was in my early 20s, pretty soon after I came here, I asked that my makeup not be tested on animals. So that's been in place for almost 40 years.
So in the beginning, though, when you were not as well known, let's say, and you started kind of pretty much demanding these things, like I'm not going to use these types of products, or these to wash my hair, or this makeup, or this leather shoe, or this, and I think we've talked about before, that was kind of tough because a lot of period type pieces, almost all their shoes are leather, the older. You must have gotten some pushback early on. If you want to do this, Alexandra, you're going to use this stuff because we don't have time or the budget to go get all your own stuff that's not tested on animals. No,
never got pushback from the makeup.
Okay.
Yeah, never got that. Makeup artists were always really happy to accommodate because they also were excited. Plus, you could use a lot of MAC and Joe Blasco, they all had in their kits, so it wasn't that hard. Often they would call me and ask me, well, is this okay and that okay? I never, because I was a good girl, I never demanded anything, but I did I did wear leather as an actor on set. I just didn't in my private life. But then it was always really easy to sort of choose the cheaper pair of shoes and just tell the wardrobe folks that I was perfectly happy wearing those plastic shoes from Payless, and if they looked fine. So I didn't have a lot of pushback from most things. In fact, when I was on Baywatch, they knew my sensibility. They knew I was a vegetarian, and they knew that I had that in my contract. I remember there was a Johnson & Johnson aspirin on my character's desk, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to take this off and put it in the drawer because Johnson & Johnson tests on animals," and I didn't want my desk, my character's desk. And the prop guy, he let me do that. I mean, and when they wrote me into a scene with Pamela and I at SeaWorld. And I asked them if you could write me out because I didn't believe in aquariums or anything that held animals in captivity. And they did, because they knew I wasn't being a diva. They knew that I was just following my values. Right. And to the producer's credit, they just cut out my character. And
Right.
So.
And, as vegans, I think a lot of times, they really kind of hold us up to maybe different standards where we're having to say, we end up just saying we're just doing the very best we can. And you had an interesting scenario unfold when you married your amazing husband, Ian, in 2000, where you got a lot of flack because, of course, you wanted to have a dress and I'm sure everything, makeup, jewelry, shoes, all of it that was cruelty-free. But you got a lot of flack because the dress, do I remember this right, had, just non-recyclable materials like plastics and whatever, vegan dresses are made from back then. And you took a lot of flack for that.
Well, yes, I did get, and it's an interesting conversation, and I didn't take it personally. I thought, yeah, I get it. Some folks, because I had a dress that was it wasn't made of silk, and most wedding dresses are made of something fancy like that, and it was made of nylon or something that was made of a plastic derivative. Right. I was somebody questioned me, and several people did, about the fact that I was wearing a non-recyclable material, and I just responded that sometimes you have to pick your battles. You can't be perfect, and I aired on the side of the cruelty. And so, and I gave that dress back. I didn't want to keep it because why keep a wedding dress that's not that you'll never wear again? And so I gave it back to the designer so that she could use it again. So hopefully it didn't go.
So it actually was recycled.
It was recycled.
I didn't know that part. It's not in your closet. There you go, folks.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.